conscious focused action, is to get hyper focused on one specific result that is the most important result. Get conscious of what resources you're going to need. Are you going to need what path you're going to choose? And then focusing yourself, your mind, your whole heart's in it. Your body is moving forward, and you're only taking the actions that you've identified, and you've even put them in the right order. What are the right actions to take to get to that? And get rid of everything else. And you will move forward at hyperspeed.
This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello, it's Neil Ball. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneur's journey, the vision, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures and successes. I am so excited to bring you our special guest today, JV Crum III. But before I introduce you to him, I have a quote for you. Oscar Wilde said, "Questions are never indiscreet. Answers sometimes are." The Entrepreneur Way asks the questions so we all get the insight, inspiration and ideas to apply in our businesses. JV, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Neil, I am fired up. I'm excited. And, I really appreciate you having me on your show. You've got a great show. Your listeners, must be in love with you 7 days a week. I want to congratulate you on all your success.
Thanks for coming on the show, JV. I really appreciate it. JV Crum III helps entrepreneurs grow 6- and 7-figure conscious businesses that combine making high profits with making a positive impact. He is a speaker, coach, Huffington Post columnist, and best-selling author of Conscious Millionaire, Grow Your Business by Making a Difference. He hosts the top-ranking Conscious Millionaire podcast and is the founder of ConsciousMillionaire.com, a global coaching and wealth product business. He holds an MBA, JD, Masters in Psychology, and has built and sold successful businesses. JV, can you provide us with some more insight into your business and personal life to allow us to get to know more about what you do and who you are?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm kind of a guy who loves adventure. I love waking up and I love personal growth, really reaching out and trying new things. And I guess, one of the words I would use to describe you, I've actually never said this on a show. I'm an iterator. So what's an iterator? It's somebody who takes an idea and I keep coming up with a new version of it and then digging deeper and digging deeper and digging deeper. And I do that all day long in everything that I'm doing. It's like, there's kind of like another way to do this. There's a better way to do this. So that's why I love marketing and I love business, because it's just that working with clients is so exciting, doing coaching, because I get to look at their businesses and go, tell me where you really want to take this, because I like to work with people who want to double their business. That to me is an exciting thing to do. And then looking at all the ways to do it and just iterating the path along until you find something that's really going to work well.
Mm-hmm. So you say you're an iterator. Have you got any examples of how you've iterated success for somebody?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll talk about, you have to disclaim, it's like I can't, promise what I'm going to get with anybody. But I had a client and it was really a lot of fun. We took him, it's because the two of us are working as a team, went from 1 to 2 million run rate and doubled his profits in 5 months. That was fun. So it was figuring out how his mind worked, because I do a combination of kind of a 3-prong. Where do I think most of the money is made in business? And they happen to be 3 things I happen to be really good at. They're my 3 things, is that the mindset, which is not just the beliefs, it's how do you think about something? It's how do you look at it? How do you analyze it? What kind of questions do you ask? And then also, what are the ways that you're thinking about possibilities? And then we looked at the systems and how could we put things together so that they were more efficient, and what were the right steps? And then a strong focus on the marketing strategy. And between all of that, and I do for my private VIP acceleration clients, I do an empowerment audio that's customized because I have 9 years of NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis training and certifications, and I elicit information from them, and I put together an empowerment audio that I have them listen to every day, at least once or 2 to 3 times a day, and it really gets their internal beliefs and system aligned with the goals that they want, and it makes a tremendous difference. So I like looking at all those pieces together. So we just kept iterating his business and how he was doing his marketing, and that changed, the very nature of how he was making money, and it greatly, exploded his revenues and profits.
What do you enjoy most about what you do, JV?
I really like to see light bulbs go off in other people and help them do what Conscious Millionaires all set up to do, bring together making profits and making a positive impact, and working with entrepreneurs. Virtually everybody who comes to me, I don't even have to bring it up. They're going to bring up the topic of, I want to, either they want to discover what is that deeper why for them, their deeper purpose, and how can I bring that into business because I'm not feeling fulfilled, or they have a kind of a clear vision of that, and they have a business, but the business isn't making the money it could be making. So they're not monetizing as well as they could. And just putting that all together so that they can really get their message out there and just make a much bigger difference in the world while becoming much more profitable and getting the financial and time freedom that they're looking for. So to me, it's holistic. Your business and your life are not separate. As entrepreneurs, they're very much together. And one of the things we have to do is look at, you started this business, and a lot of times with Conscious Millionaire, people come, they started it sometimes in part, because they're just looking for an avenue to go make some difference in the world. But they also wanted to get a certain lifestyle, and you have to build the business model around what was that lifestyle that you really wanted, so that you're certain that you get all the pieces and that's where you're headed in all the decisions you make.
Mm. So when somebody comes to you and they've got a business and they're not clear on the why, maybe they've sort of set a business up because they know what they like doing or how they like to do something, how do you get them to understand or to decide what their why is so they become enthused about what they're doing?
But, that's a great question. And actually, it comes out of chapter 4 in my book because it's a very important piece for me. And here are the 3 steps that I take someone through. And it may happen very quickly. It might happen over 2 or 3 weeks, but I get somebody there fairly efficiently. The first question is, what are you really passionate about? And a lot of people say, well, I don't know what my passions are. And I go, so here's the 3 keys that I utilize. If you like to journal, I'm going to invite you to take these, and you're listening today. So, I'm going to give this to you so that you can go journal. If you're not quite clear about your why, I call it your true north. So the passionate keys are this. Every person where I've helped them get to their deep passion, we're not talking about, do you like chocolate, ice cream, or pistachio, right? We're talking about the deeper things. The first clue is it's an activity that you get lost in. You get in the flow. You think a half hour happened and actually 4 hours happened. And that's a good thing unless you told your partner you're going to meet him in a half hour, in which case this may be another bad night for you, right? So you got to be careful about that one. Number 2 is you really get into the best word that I can use to describe it, an emotional state of joy. And it really changes your whole being. It changes your musculature. It changes how you look. It changes your blood flow. And you've probably even had people look at you after you've been doing this kind of activity that you get totally immersed in. And they've said, wow, you look different. And the truth is you do. And then the third thing about your passion is that you love it so much that you've probably used it to help other people for absolutely free because you want to turn other people on to this activity and you want to use it to help them in some way in their life. So that's how you discover the passionate piece. And then the second piece is, I call it the purpose piece. However, when I was looking for my purpose, I didn't really know what it was. I had sold companies because I knew it was missing. I read a lot of books on purpose, and they would say things like this: when you find your purpose, you will know it. Well, and to which I would say inside, well, I kind of figured that part, but how now do I find it? Here's what I discovered. Think of purpose as a gold coin because it really is a critical piece in your life. And on one side is purpose, but on the back side is the secret for how you discover your purpose. Would you like that secret, Neil?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so here's the secret. It's a difference that you want to make that's outward expressed. So it's for others, it's for animals, it's for the planet, it's for organizations, but it's a difference that you just go, wow, I really want to make this difference in people's lives. So for me, you're kind of getting a sense about me from the questions you're asking. I like to wake people up to who they really are, help them bring who they are and their inner potential and the skills that they have and put them together in a way to accomplish the goals, the business that they want. And not just the business, but part of Conscious Millionaire is giving back. So what's the contribution piece you want in your life? And put all that together. So that's the difference. So there's a difference, and probably you'll find 2 or 3 as you journal about it, that you're really passionate about, and you start putting your passion and difference together. Now, here's the piece that a lot of people overlook. You've got to then look at I call them your natural skills. They're just some things that you do so well, and usually you cannot self-identify them. Like we were talking about systems earlier. Well, I was actually working with a coach last year, and he said, JV, you're just such a natural systems person. Did you know that most people don't know how to do that? And even though systems are a big deal to me, I myself wasn't thinking about the fact that most people can't do systems. They're not set up that way. And that it's what's gotten me through life. It's how I've made all my money. It's how I did well in school. It's how I look at everything. And so a lot of times you may need to go either work with a coach or ask friends or both and go, what is it I'm just naturally good at? Like you may walk in a room and you can just cut through everything. And now all of a sudden there's humor and people are working together and all the stress is gone and you're just gifted in that. So it's the things we're just naturally gifted in, and I just call them your natural skill. And then how can you utilize those to bring your passionate difference out in the world and make that the center of your business? Rather than the first question you ask is, well, how can I go find out a way to make money? What if the first question you ask is, how can I get up in the morning and go do something that helps other people that I'm just super jazzed about? And once you get clear about that, now go out in the marketplace and find the people that are going to be jazzed that you get to help them, because that's the solution. The difference you want to make is actually a solution for other people's problems. Now you start putting the business together from a way that every morning you're excited to get up and solve those problems, because those problems are the difference you wanted to make with your whole life. And once you get clear about that, wow, that's a different way of looking at your business and a much more exciting way to build your business and get your $1 million a year that you're looking for and achieve the lifestyle you want, because now you can put it together to get all of that.
So something I've thought about recently is that a lot of people are told to go and pursue their passion. And whilst that I think is a good thing, I think one of the problems with it is that it's a bit of a misdirected thing to say to people, because if your passion is to do the what or the how, you might not, and you don't have the why behind it, then ultimately, if you then go and set up a business doing your what or your how, you might find that you're not as happy as you thought you were going to be doing that. So I think it's very important that your passion is actually about the why. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with it in this regard, that here's the problem when somebody says, just go do your passion, and I make kind of fun of it. There's a book, and I'm using the title, not the content of the book, to kind of make a point here. And it's do what you love and the money will follow. And I actually put that quote in the book, and then I finished it. I said, but only if you have the right business model. So a lot of people I have met are good-hearted, really care about people. They're very passionate about what they're doing, but they just have absolutely almost no business model that makes sense. So that's only true if you put the next piece with it of build the right business model and then execute that business model. And now the word iteration is going to come in, because you create a business model, and I can guarantee you by the second day that you're executing it, you're going to be already thinking of ways it needs to change, because you're getting the feedback. And not only are you getting feedback about what works and doesn't work, so that's really going to guide a lot of your iterations, you're also getting insights inside of you, and you're going, oh, maybe why don't I go test that, see if that works out there in the marketplace. So passion without the right business model and without the right execution won't make you anything.
Yeah.
But with that, it can make you a fortune.
Mm-hmm. What is it that drives you, JV?
What drives me is singularly making a big difference in the world. Through Conscious Millionaire, my goal is to help 1 million people over the next 20, 30 years all over the world reach their definition of financial freedom. That's not necessarily $1 million for everyone. If somebody's in India and they're reading my book, it's not $1 million. It's a different amount of money, but it's different for every person. The real issue is what's financial freedom for you. The other real drive about making a difference is I have a global nonprofit, Conscious World Foundation. I work with youth 18 to 25 around the world who are doing projects to make a positive impact in the world. So for me, it's about how do we change the world from where it is right now to a different vision? How do I help people change their lives, build the businesses they want, and through those businesses, get their difference out in the world? So for me, it's really about transformation and creating change that's positive in the world.
So when you aren't running your podcast and you're not consulting with people and you're not running this charity, how do you relax when you're not working in your businesses?
I do a variety of things. Tonight, I live downtown Denver, and what's great, it's a city of 3 million, and it's just kind of the perfect size city for me because 2 blocks away from my loft is hockey tonight, and I have a ticket for hockey tonight, and 5 blocks away is Coors Field where we have baseball. And next week, I'm going to, the opening of the baseball season, which should be quite an event. And so I go to a lot of entertainment, a variety of things, concerts, sports. This summer, I've already got all my reservations because you have to reserve them. You can reserve them 5 months in advance, and you better believe I'm the guy who reserves them on that day. And so I have all these great camping sites throughout the Rocky Mountain National Park to go camping. I've got concerts to go to this summer. I create little adventures, like I'm going to Podcast Movement in Chicago, and the train system in the United States is kind of reviving. And so rather than taking the flight there, I've got a couchette, so I've got my own apartment and all the meals that I can have delivered to it on the second level, and I'm taking an 18-hour train trip to get to Chicago rather than a 2-hour flight, and I'll fly back. But I create little ways to have adventures.
Well, I'm glad to see that you seem to be having quite a bit of fun doing that. Do you have any entrepreneurial role models?
That's really interesting. Right now, I'm studying Frank Kern a lot. So all year long, so I said, this is Frank Kern's year. So I'm doing basically all of his different programs. I did a package, so I got them all. And 2 weeks from now, I'm going over to do a training with him in San Diego. Depending on where you are in the world, that's a 2-hour plane ride, or you could drive for 18 hours if you preferred it that way. I'm taking the plane this time. So for me, right now, I'm really focusing a lot on all the marketing pieces. So, it's whoever I'm studying at the moment. In terms of who do I most admire who's entrepreneurial, actually, my biggest hero in that area is Oprah Winfrey. And it's Oprah Winfrey, not because of her specific, she did the TV show, she did this. It's not her business model per se. It's her heart and how she brings that into her business and how everything she's doing is always about making a difference in people's lives and making a difference in the world. And that's what I'm about. So you can see why she'd be, to me, kind of a hero role model.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people cite.
Yeah, I mean, I really love her story. She came from nothing. I came from nothing. I think so many of the people I know who are doing something worthwhile in the world, we kind of all grew up in situations where we didn't have a golden spoon. And part of our drive was we wanted to have something different for ourselves. And then once you kind of start getting that, you really translate that into, how can I go out there and start doing something for other people?
Mm-hmm. JV, what I'd like to do now is talk about the time before you were an entrepreneur. So what difficulties did you have to overcome?
I was in the womb with my mother. Now, I don't know how you were born. I guess there's different ways. I'm not really prejudiced about it. Maybe you were hatched out of eggs or whatever. But that's how I got here. And I don't know that I was an entrepreneur then. But, when I look back, maybe I was.
Yeah. So what difficulties did you have to overcome when you started your business?
Well, the first thing was I didn't plan to be an entrepreneur. In fact, I planned not to be an entrepreneur because I grew up in this little country town. Let me define country, 200 to 300 people. So small country town, right? It's not a city, it's a town. There was a little blinking light at one place, there was yellow on one side and red on the other. And, in fact, I lived on a street that while it was paved with rocks and asphalt. That's kind of a country way to pave. It didn't have a name. Like what's, like when you do those security questions, like what street did you go up on? I don't know. I had no name. It's just the street in front of our house. And at any rate, so everybody was kind of broke, basically. That's kind of the way I grew up. So I had it in my mind that being an entrepreneur was how you went broke. And I went to college actually to go to med school. And I did my pre-med and said, well, this is nice, but actually turns out I didn't like the biology as much as I liked the physics and chemistry. And, as you might have noticed, we're running around in these biological bodies. And I said, maybe it's not the right journey for me. And I've never doubted that, but I'm glad I got the pre-med done. And so my father's company was basically bankrupt, and I was finishing up my first graduate degree. So I was 22 at the time. And I came home for a month. I was working on my thesis, and my father said, will you come help me? And I said, I know nothing about business, but I knew that I loved my dad. So I said, I'll work with you for 6 months. Well, that was an 18-and-a-half-year journey, and sold those companies. I got a law degree and an MBA in the process. And it turned out that I was the unexpected entrepreneur millionaire. That was not how I thought I was going to do it. Well, here's the important part of the story. I went to college and never took a business course. I didn't read any business books, business articles. I wanted nothing to do with it, but I was really good in school. Although when I was growing up, I wasn't. So there was a whole journey to that too. But what it really turned out in retro, looking back, is that I was a systems thinker. Once again, I didn't know I was a systems thinker because that's how I thought. Guess what? In business, that's how you really make the money. You've got, we had lots of business, but everything was put together wrong. And I put the business together and got it highly systemized. And everything we did, there was a system for it. And over a period of a year, I turned everything around. And I was very excited by all that, not to mention that we were beginning to make money. Although my salary for the first year, you could laugh, because 2 years later, I had a, luxury brand new 4-story home on the water with a Mercedes and made the first $1 million. But my first year, and there's a good point to saying this, I made $8,000 because all the money was being used to pay off all the debts the company had and get the company in good shape. So it wasn't like I was living like a king or anything. And I think it's important to remember that when you are starting out in business, you've really got to think the first 2 to 3 years are about you're going to pay your dues, because either you're going to pay your dues or you're not going to build something. I love all these great ideas that are in the book, the 4-Hour Work Week. But the truth is, a lot of people read that and go, oh, well, that's how you build the business and everything's on automation. Yeah, but you got to build it first. And you got to figure out who that audience is and what products they want to buy. And that takes some time to do. It doesn't happen in 30 days and everything's put together and bango, you can go play golf or ski or whatever it is all the time. You have to be realizing that up front, you got to be really focused on the business.
Mm-hmm. So the difficulties that you had when you started then, the business that your dad had, was that losing money at the time?
Oh my gosh, it was pouring money out. It was well, it's actually there's kind of a funny story there, because three months into this, like, wow, it was a regional trucking line, so I'm hundreds of loads a week, hundreds of loads, mm-hmm. And 3 months into it, I'm going, we never have any money to pay our bills, which to me was quite a mystery. So I'm a numbers-oriented person. So I spent the entire weekend and I just poured through, every number I could get a hold of. I was looking at, doing all these calculations, looking at all our revenues, looking at everything that we were spending money on. And I remember it was about Sunday evening. I called up my dad and, in retrospect, you go, big duh. But you know what? Most of the solutions you get in business, a lot of times when you look back, they're big does, but they're not big does before you discover them, mm-hmm. right? And by big duh, I mean well, wouldn't anybody know that? Yeah, but you don't know it till you discover it. And I said, Dad, I figured out the problem. We're paying out more money every week than we're taking in. Well, that was the problem. And you know what I did? Monday, I called our clients and I got as much as 25% raises on Monday in our rates. And I said, here's the deal. We can't stay in business anymore. You need our service. We're giving you what you want, but we're charging too little for it. So either you have to pay us more money or I can't pull your loads anymore. And after 30 more days, I said, I bet we're doing that with the expenses too. And so I went through all the expenses, and in the fourth month, we opened our own maintenance company and hired 2 mechanics and put together a proactive maintenance system that was seeing all the equipment every month and taking care of all the problems, so it stopped having all these breakdowns, which cost a lot more money, and we stopped sending it to outside people who were just really ramming it to us, to be blunt. And they'd keep the equipment for a week, and we couldn't pull any loads with it, and then they'd give us this big bill. And, I started looking at the bills and going, I don't know how to do mechanical work, but this doesn't make sense to me, right? You just kind of look at it. It just seems blatantly doesn't make sense to me. And that's how I put things together. And by the end of it turned out there were 9 years worth of liens that I started figuring out. And I would call them up and I'd go, you know what? You haven't been paid in 5 years. I can pay you in 3 weeks, but I can only give you like 20 cents on the dollar, Well, they were happy to get 20 cents on the dollar and sign off on the lien, because after 5 years, they didn't think they were going to get anything, and they'd had 0 so far. And I got rid of all the liens. Mm-hmm. And now the company's in healthy shape after a year.
Excellent. So did you have any doubts about getting involved in that business?
I had a lot of doubts because it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was finishing up a master's in psychology. I'd gotten into a PhD program. I decided after working for a year in a closed unit with severely psychotic patients, this wasn't for me. It was not what I wanted to do with my life. And I had taken the LSAT and was going to go to law school. So I was in the I'm going to law school mode. And this was kind of an interruption to that to help my dad. But then when I started looking at all this, is why I love working with clients with their businesses. I found it fascinating to figure out what was wrong and fix it and get the business really rolling and highly profitable. So for me, that became very exciting.
And what mistakes did you make that slowed the journey of turning the business around?
It's kind of a hard one, because when I look back, actually, I think if I were going to say what would have been one thing I might have done a little faster, probably I held on to things like doing all the dispatching of like 100 loads a day while I was running the company. Now, when you hear that I hope that sounds a little crazy, because it was. So probably I kept things longer than I should have. I should have delegated them, but I didn't know what that word delegation meant. And so I probably did that longer than I should have.
Yeah, I don't think it's usually in the entrepreneur dictionary at first, is it?
No, it's not, because we kind of have this view that we do it better than everybody.
Yeah.
But the truth is, everything that you do, you can teach to somebody else or hire somebody who can do it. And a lot of the stuff, here's what you discover, they can do it better because it's not your top skills.
Absolutely. I remember when I first started out, I remember being presented with some video about delegation and how even if somebody does something 80% as well as what you do it, or how you think you do it, then obviously if you've got a team of people doing something 80% of what you're doing, it doesn't take too long to figure out that a few people are going to do it better than you. So you need to be delegating, regardless of whether you find people who are better at it or not better than you are at it. What are some of the things that you did before you started your business that'd be helpful tips to some of the listeners who haven't yet taken the first step on the entrepreneur way? I think
that's a great question, Neil. And in my case, I've really kind of given the hints. When I was in school, actually in the 7th grade, I was really quite horrible. And so I was the accidental valedictorian because I just got tired of going home and getting these admonishing 6 weeks worth of you're not living up to your potential talks. And so I wasn't making very good grades. And I learned how to make an A. And then I learned how to put systems together. And that's how I got through college. So even though I didn't know what I was doing, if you're listening to this and you don't own a business, let's say you're working for someone, you probably have skills that you don't even think of as business skills. Because even if I had known that I was doing systems at that point in time without building a business, getting an MBA, all these kinds of things, I still wouldn't have known the value of systems and that could turn a business around. So you probably have some skills right now that you're really good at that you can cross-platform, that you can bring over and use as an entrepreneur that are going to give you your edge, just like my systems gave me my edge, and they're going to give you an edge that are really going to help you. So you can transfer one skill set from one domain to another. And I think that's an incredible thing to realize in terms of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's what Steve Jobs talked about in his Stanford address, isn't it? Where he talked about joining the dots up, where initially it might not seem, there might not be any reason for doing certain things, but eventually you can take those skills and apply them on something in the future. JV, what I'd like to do now is talk about the entrepreneurial journey a little bit with you. So, do you think culture is important from the beginning in a business?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, the culture as an entrepreneur, when you're starting out, and you're going to build it organically. So you're not doing this movie thing where you went and you got, 10 million in funding and all of that. So that's a whole different route than we're talking about. So most companies, let's say over 95% of business, are actually built in the kind of traditional sense of you start the business yourself. You're not getting outside funding. So I think that the culture really starts with how you choose to show up, because the culture is you. It's your values. It's your big why, your true north, your how you schedule your day, how you keep your word or you don't keep your word, how many hours you work, what it's all about for you, what your personal life is about. All of that inside of you and the way you're operating is the culture, because the day you hire your first person to work with you, even if they're virtual, now you're beginning a culture that's intrapersonal, but it all starts inside of you. And I think that that's what most people don't realize. It's like it's kind of like the word legacy, because that's something I like to talk about. Legacy isn't something that's going to happen 30 years from now. Legacy is how you show up every day. The same thing's true with culture. You're creating your culture every day by how you choose to do business.
I think the thing is, a lot of people go into business and they don't choose the culture, do they? They just create the culture without realizing they're creating it, and then
I think
look at it afterwards and wonder how's this happened.
I think it's the difference between being conscious of what you're doing and doing everything in an unconscious way, in which case you haven't been intentional about how you want to show up and what that culture for you and then ultimately for your entire organization is going to be.
Knowing what you know now, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
Well, if we take Conscious Millionaire, which is the business I'm building now, I think if I had gotten a more narrow focus quicker, that I would have gotten faster traction earlier. So in working with a lot of coaches, information marketers, businesses that, really want to grow with some piece of it being online, it's really getting that narrow focus. And so now I'm kind of, I'm kind of on the side of the curve that when I'm working with someone, one of the first things I'm going to do is get them to narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow that focus down and get really successful with a small, narrow focus. And you can broaden it as you go, but it's much, much easier if you're speaking to one narrow group of people to attract them and sell them and build the product that they want than if it's broad. Mm-hmm. And the biggest challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs have, and it's like I've seen it over and over and over again. It's just a natural pattern as human beings. It's like, well, I got to take every sale I can take. And I'm going, no, actually, you've got to get really good at being like a pinpoint and knowing that it's this group of people with this set of problems and they want to go here. And you want to be the best you can be about connecting with them and helping them go to where they want to go. And that's where you're going to get much more sales because it's predictable. Because now you can put out a marketing message that's so specific that those people go, bing, 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 that's me. I want to raise my hand. I want to go over here because I've been looking for somebody who understood who I was. And all these other people are making messages and they kind of sound a little bit like me. But this one I'm interested in. And that will give you traction much, much quicker.
Yeah. I think that's one of the other great challenges of a lot of people in business, isn't it? Just realizing that if you try to sell to everybody, then you don't really appeal to anybody particularly. Whereas if you niche it down, then you can build from there. I think that's great advice. JV, how much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
I wrote a whole chapter about that in my book, Out of 14. So that should tell you something. I call it Millionaire Inner Zone. Getting in that zone where we're really connected with all the energy in ourselves and the energy around us, and then paying attention to the intuition we have. Now, let's say gut level, let's say sensory specific, because some people are going to get visual messages. Some people are going to get auditory messages. It might even be a sound, a voice. And other people are going to get physical sensations. And that's how they're going to pick up their intuition. Learning to be really precise in knowing how you get that information. I call that an intuition map. And then paying attention to when it's occurring and acting on it. That you find that when I get this sensation, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, that most of the time, if I act on it, it's accurate, that I get the result I'm looking for. And then also noticing when those sensations, just feel really kind of out of sync, right? Like you've just got this kind of crazy energy that shows up in your body, and maybe you used gut. So maybe in your gut, just nothing feels right. It's like heavy. It's almost sickening. Well, maybe you should pay attention to that. In fact, not maybe, you should. I use it every day. I wouldn't even know how to build a business without paying attention to it. When I was turning around our family company and really growing it, every day I was paying attention to what feels like the thing I ought to be focused on, and then I'd go focus on it. So it's bringing not just that intuition or gut level by itself, it's putting it out and looking for feedback and looking at the logic parts of it. So I think you should bring all those pieces together. It's not one or the other, but always paying attention to whether something feels to you in a way that you would define as right. Like, yes, this is a yes, let's go explore it.
Yeah. So for people who don't really trust their gut feeling, how would you suggest they tune their gut feeling so they start to trust it?
So, Neil, I call it building a skill. And any skill, if you go back to riding a bike, almost everybody listening, you've probably learned to ride a bike. And like me, you probably fell and skinned your knees a few times, right? You learn it one step at a time, and you practice it. And sometimes you're good at it and sometimes you're not. So when I'm working with a client on their intuition and bringing it into their business, I have them keep a journal and have them go, okay, so you got this kind of, we'll use the gut level. And then you did something, but it didn't seem to turn out right. Okay, pay attention to exactly what was the sensation that you got. And then another time you got a sensation and things seem to work out. So it's learning a skill. And the more that you become conscious of what's going on inside of you and then how it relates to what's going on outside of you, the better you'll build that skill. So I just look at it as building a skill.
Mm-hmm. So you're just fine tuning and adjusting as you go.
Yeah,
so you get
you're just taking it one step at a time, and you're not betting the farm on this. You're just trying it out. And one of the frames I like about life is life's an experiment. Now, if life's an experiment, there's actually no right and wrong. All you're doing is going out there to have experiences and see what responses you get. Well, that's a great experiment. And sometimes you get responses you like, and sometimes you get responses you don't. And that's how you build marketing, and it's how you build every aspect of your business. And you just look at it as this great experiment, and you want to get better at being an experimenter so that you get more results that are the ones you want. And so it kind of has a lighthearted kind of fun approach to that, because you might as well have a good time with this rather than being frustrated because you didn't get the result you wanted, and be curious. Well, what happened so that this time I really got the result well, but yesterday I did something kind of similar and I didn't. So what's the difference between what I did today and yesterday?
Life is made of constant change, whether we like it or not, and many say the only constant in life is change. JV, how do you try to keep up with change?
So now we come to that word iteration again, right? Because what's iteration? Iteration is just changing what you're doing in order to get the response that you want. So to me, I love change, but I kind of like to be on the front end. So I like the way I get on the front end. By that, what I mean is I like to feel that I have some control with this change. And you can get, very philosophical. I've lived at a Buddhist monastery, and we can all go to philosophical places, but I'm really interested in building businesses. So let's get practical here. Things are going to change, and they're going to constantly change. The way that you can feel in control when things are changing are not to try to control the change, because you can't control the change. But you can control how you're riding the wave of change. You can control the decisions that you make. And so the best way to do that and feel in control, because I like to feel in control, and if you're listening to this, probably, if you're honest with yourself, you like to feel in control as well. As human beings, we like that. So since we can't control the change, let's control how we respond to the change and how we utilize the change to our advantage to create opportunities for us as entrepreneurs. So the more conscious we are about what's going on around us, that's the change around us, the more that we can make really good decisions, step back and go, here's the change that's going on. How can I use that to my advantage in how I'm building my business? Now you can be in control of what you're doing, and the change is accepting it rather than trying to eliminate it, because you can't eliminate it. It's happening. And then utilize it to build your business.
What is your favorite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership, or motivation? And can you tell us why you have chosen it?
Yeah, it's not going to be a huge shocker. It's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I think I think every entrepreneur should read it. You should reread it. It's called The Science of Success. And really, it comes out of the early 1900s. You've also got books like, Waddell's book and James As a Man Thinketh. So there are a lot of books in that era. The Science of Getting Rich is Waddell's, that I believe everybody should read. But Think and Go Rich is kind of like the beginning place of this whole thing that we call the science of success. And that's what they named it. It really is what it was about, is saying, wait, this thing called success and being an entrepreneur and getting to the results you want and building the business and having the profits you want and creating the change you want out in the world. This thing is a process to it. And there's certain things, if you do them, you're going to get better results than if you don't do them. And many of those things are in the book, Think and Grow Rich.
Everyone, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time when you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you are at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudiobookoffer.com. As long as you've not already signed up, then you will qualify. JV, what I'd like to do with you now is just speculate about the future a little bit. What one thing would you do with your business if you knew that you could not fail?
If I knew that I couldn't fail, I would scale as fast as I could. If I knew that I couldn't fail. Because isn't that what growing the business is all about? Ultimately, you come to the point of scaling. So I would be just hyper-focused on how fast can I scale.
And what skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
Well, actually, it would be getting more things off of my plate. And I'm getting much better at that because I'm defining what are the 3 things I'm doing in my business that I should be doing, and I shouldn't be doing anything else. So now I'm moving to get that off, but getting that off faster. It's still been one of those things. I'm good at enough things that I do too many things.
Mm-hmm. I had a guest on here who used to make it a policy to delegate something like, I can't remember his percentage now, but he made it a policy to delegate virtually everything he did within 12 months. So I thought it was
well, in my case, that'd be a little difficult because one of the things I do is host my podcast, and one of the things I do is coach. So this is, and that's an example that if you're an entrepreneur where your business is actually built around your skills, then you have to figure out how to delegate everything else. So like when I do my podcast, I have a full-time person, Tiffany, who takes care of all my podcasts. I record them. I'm done. Yeah. And we have systems in place for every piece of it, every tweet, how to, the editing, how to do every piece of the production, how to get it out there, what to do before the production. I don't do any of that. And so then what you have to do is say, okay, I'm at the center of these pieces because we're building the business around my skills. If you speak, if you coach, if you do any of those kinds of things, it's unique to you, but then you've got to figure out how to leverage you and get rid of all the other stuff. And that's the difference between this business and running a regional trucking line. Running a regional trucking line, it had nothing to do while my skills were used to build the business. And so I'm giving you two different models. You're listening to this. You may be building a business and it has nothing to do with your skills being at the center. Then, Neil, I think that's where the idea that keep delegating it. But it's a really different model when your skills, like hosting podcasts and radio shows and coaching, are at the center of what you're doing. Then you've really got to get rid of the pieces. Like in my case, I know that ultimately I'll have one person who's going to really be my right-hand person in terms of managing. Because while I know how to manage a business really well, ultimately I can't manage this business. Ultimately, I have to look at reports, and I know that's where I'm headed.
In 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
That I've built at least a $10 million business that's changing people's lives because our programs are so well developed that when somebody comes in and they go through our program, they really build their business. So I'm helping entrepreneurs not only get the life and the financial results that they want, but the avenue from their own business to get out there and make a maximum difference to their clients in the world. And that's what we do here. And we do it better than anybody else on the planet. That's what I'd want them to say.
JV, we're now at the part of the show where you share 3 golden nuggets with us. So what is your favorite quote and how have you applied it?
Well, here I'm going to share my personal motto because it spent years developing, and it's 3 words: trust perfect timing. And for me, that's a very concrete thing. It means that when I'm present and I'm open to possibility and I'm being real with myself, feeling authentic in all my steps, that it's like I go through a portal and I realize that all around me, in truth, everything is happening in perfect timing. And that when I'm connected to that everything that's really in my and every person's best interest that I come in contact with is already happening, and to be mindful of that, because it's a very different way. You and I were talking before the show. We both have podcasts, and sometimes people don't show up. And so rather than going, oh, I'm really super disappointed, even if it was like a great guest that you were looking forward to meeting, going, when and if that person shows up for a different recording, it will be the right moment. And right now I needed that hour to do something else, and accepting that rather than being frustrated by it.
Do you have any favorite online resources that you can share with us?
I am a lead page guy. I love lead pages. Every once in a while a product comes along and it's just nonsense that every entrepreneur who does business online doesn't have it. I bought their ultimate program. I buy everything that they have. Their pages are easy to use and they convert.
And what is your best advice to other entrepreneurs?
I'm going to share my formula for creating wealth because it's how I went from broke to, not only was I broke as a graduate student, my father was basically in bankruptcy. And in 3 years, the company was in a totally different place. And I was living in this 4-story new luxury home and a Mercedes at age 25, which was pretty unusual. And it's conscious focused action is to get hyper focused on one specific result that is the most important result. Get conscious of what resources you're going to need. Are you going to need what path you're going to choose? And then focusing yourself, your mind, your whole heart's in it. Your body is moving forward, and you're only taking the actions that you've identified, and you've even put them in the right order. What are the right actions to take to get to that? And get rid of everything else. And you will move forward at hyperspeed.
Everyone, if you didn't manage to get a note of JV's favourite resource or his favourite books, you can find the links on JV's show notes page. Just go to theentrepreneurway.com and search for JV or JV Crum III in the search box. JV, is there anything else that you'd like to add about your business?
Well, what I'd like to do is give everybody an opportunity to have my book. It's been downloaded over 50,000 times at Amazon, and we actually reached, in internet world, things happen for a short period of time, but we were number one in 34 categories. And for 6 hours, the number one book on all of Amazon, which, we had over 50,000 downloads. And I'd like to give it to everybody free.
Okay. How do they get that?
Well, you just go to consciousmillionaire.com/my book, consciousmillionaire.com/my book. All I want you to do is just tell me a little bit about you. You get the book free, and then I have a $97 companion course, the fast track training that goes along with it with 16 videos. You're going to get that absolutely free. You're going to get a link to just get it for free. And I want to give that to everybody, whether you currently are an entrepreneur or you are an entrepreneur, because the book is designed with over 100 coaching exercises to help you build your business from any stage to where you want to go.
JV, you came on this show and you said you are the iterator, and it's been interesting just getting into your mindset and figuring out what your passion is, which is clearly being an entrepreneur. And it's been great finding that insight and inspiration that you have in you. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
But Neil, the honor is mine. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
You are welcome, JV. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter @Neil D. Ball.